What's going on, guys? Ron Parita here from Techno Buffalo, and today I'm very excited to be coming to you guys from the iPhone 7 Plus. We're going to be doing a camera test to see whether or not the iPhone 7 camera lives up to all the hype, and if the iPhone 7 Plus is worth your extra money, and if that extra camera really is all that Apple is saying it is. So the first and probably most important thing to cover in this video is the dual lens camera setup and how it works. Now, this may seem very straightforward and you might think you know it, but trust me, it's more confusing than I first thought. It's not just two lenses that you can switch in between. It's actually a third virtual lens, if you will, that's taking the picture. What I mean by that is very few photos, maybe one or two photos you take, will be taken solely with the wide-angle lens or the telephoto lens. The majority of them will be a combination of both. Apple software is pulling from the telephoto lens and from the wide-angle lens, whether it be exposure, highlight data, detail, all sorts of stuff, to give you what it thinks is the best combination of both worlds. The term used, computational photography. Now, Apple did not dive into any of this during their keynote. All the information we're covering is based on as much information we've been able to gather through other people's tests and our own tests in our own usage. So one of the few times you will be using only one lens with the iPhone 7 Plus is when you're using one-time zoom standard wide-angle shot. You're using the 28mm lens that is both shared on the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus. 9 times out of 10, you'll be getting exactly the same image. When taking a photo at a 1.5 times zoom or a 1.7 times zoom, basically anything between 1 and 2 times zoom, the iPhone 7 Plus is going to be actually using its wider angle lens, digitally zooming in and then adding in more digital information that's pulling from the telephoto lens. So it's not actually zooming, it's more so creating the effect of zooming, and through some trickery is yielding a slightly more detailed image than the iPhone 7. In practice, it did yield some better results. However, I wouldn't say they're head and shoulders above what the iPhone 7 is putting out with digital zooming, and I don't think it was very consistent either. There were some circumstances where photos looked identical, but this mountain shot, for example, makes a good case for the 7 Plus. And this makes sense given that the wider angle lens is faster in terms of its aperture and also has OIS built in. So in a lot of situations, the iPhone is going to be leaning on that camera more so than it would lean on the telephoto lens, which is a 2.8 aperture and will take in less light and also does not have OIS. And speaking of OIS, there is no OIS on that telephoto lens. This is a huge problem and something to be aware of when going to a 2x zoom, for example, and running around. If you're doing video or photo, you are way more likely to get blurry shots, and I found that happening to me a lot. This becomes even more pronounced when shooting in low light. Because the f2.8 aperture is slower on the telephoto lens compared to the wide-angle lens, the iPhone is going to be doing a decent amount of work with that wide-angle lens and then digitally zooming in, trying to add some more detail back in. The end result is usually you'll have a mixed bag. In some photos, you'll have the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus putting out the exact same low-light images with the same amount of noise and same amount of detail. In other situations, you'll have the 7 Plus resolving a little more detail, but you'll also have it resolving more noise, which is clearly coming from the telephoto lens. Of course, I don't mean to sound as though I don't appreciate the telephoto lens. In all honesty, in my regular usage, if I wasn't pixel peeping, it was really nice to have a 2x zoom, and I got some really unique shots that I wouldn't have gotten with that standard wide-angle lens. When you dive a little bit deeper, it's a little bit surprising how often the iPhone's actually leaning on that wide-angle lens rather than using the telephoto when you think you might be. All this means is that with a standard iPhone 7, you're going to be getting, in my opinion, about 60 to 80% of the results and the value and the photo quality that you get with the 7 Plus. It's not leaps and bounds above the iPhone 7. The 7 Plus is not 2 times better because it has 2 cameras. But this was purely in my usage. If you take a lot of daytime photos that are perfectly lit and you want that 2x zoom option, you're going to be using the heck out of that telephoto lens. But if you're not in those ideal circumstances, for example, if you're in low light and you're trying to use the 2x zoom, don't bother with the iPhone 7 Plus because you're going to be using digital zoom anyways, since the wider lens has a better, wider aperture to take in more light. So the iPhone is going to prioritize with that one because it prioritizes exposure over sharpness, so it won't be using the telephoto lens at all in that scenario. At the event, Apple announced that they have a portrait mode, something we've seen with the Huawei P9, so this isn't some new revolutionary technology. It uses a depth sensor by using both lenses to then create an artificially blurry background, resembling a depth of field effect that you get from a lot of DSLRs. We got to try it out in the beta version, so there's going to be some issues, but the results were pretty good. The camera does guide you step by step, telling you to go closer or further away from your subject if there's issues, so it's not going to be some quick way to snap a picture and get amazing results. Just bear that in mind, but the results are pretty solid when they do come through. The blurs are gradual, they look very realistic. I did notice when taking a bunch of photos in a row very quickly, the portrait mode wouldn't always work and sometimes you'd be left with a normal background. However, in 1 or 2 photos, it would fix that and then blur the background for the next photo. So just be sure to take your time when using this mode. So far, this could just be for the beta, and when it goes to full release, we may not see these issues. Additionally, the portrait mode only works by using the telephoto lens, so you're not going to be getting any wide-angle shots. It also really struggles with low light. You actually need a lot more light. Realistically, you're only going to be able to use this outside when it's really bright out or if you're in a really well-lit room. And so that's really the camera situation on the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you feel the 7 Plus is leaps and bounds ahead of the 7? If you were in the market, which one would you get? I'm very curious to hear if any or neither. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Hit subscribe for more tech content and coverage, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.